The United States and Mexico have been sending an alarming number of active troops to the border since President Trump returned to the White House. The pretext for this militarization of the border was to increase security and illegal activities. However, things have allegedly taken a dramatic turn with the cartel, seeing the increased military presence as a threat to their lucrative operations. These groups are forming alliances and gearing for what now seems to be an inevitable all-out war. What exactly is happening between special forces and cartels in Mexico? Let's find out. Trump's administration faces cartels head-on. With President Donald Trump back in the White House, the United States has embarked on a mission to dismantle the powerful Mexican drug cartels that have long plagued both nations. President Trump has announced his intention to deploy United States special operators against Mexican drug cartels. This bold statement has ignited a firestorm of debate, raising questions about the potential for military intervention and the implications for United States-Mexico relations. During his first term as president, Donald Trump adopted a hardline stance against Mexican drug cartels, making border security and the fight against illegal drugs a cornerstone of his administration's policy. One of his most notable actions was the construction of a border wall, a signature campaign promise aimed at curbing illegal immigration and drug trafficking. Trump argued that a physical barrier would be an effective deterrent against the flow of drugs and criminals entering the United States from Mexico. In addition to the wall, Trump implemented a series of aggressive measures to combat the cartels. His administration increased funding for border security, deploying additional border patrol agents and technology to detect and intercept drug shipments. Trump also advocated for stricter immigration policies, including the controversial zero-tolerance policy, which aimed to deter illegal crossings by prosecuting all unauthorized border entries. Trump's administration worked closely with Mexican authorities to enhance cooperation in the fight against drug trafficking. This included intelligence sharing and joint operations targeting cartel leaders and their networks. One of the most high-profile successes during this period was the capture and extradition of Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, the notorious leader of the Sinaloa cartel, who was brought to the United States to face trial. Despite these efforts, the cartels remained resilient, adapting to increased enforcement by diversifying their operations and exploiting new smuggling routes. The Trump administration faced criticism for its focus on punitive measures, with some experts arguing that a more comprehensive approach addressing the root causes of drug trafficking was needed. However, things got worse during the Biden administration, forcing people to reconsider Trump's policies as the only hope for restoring America to its former glory. For this reason, Trump is taking an even harder stance on immigration and cartels after his 2025 return to the White House. The proposal to deploy United States special operators to combat Mexican drug cartels presents a host of legal and diplomatic challenges that could complicate its implementation. One of the primary legal hurdles is the issue of sovereignty. Mexico, as a sovereign nation, has the right to govern its own territory and conduct its own law enforcement operations. Any unilateral military action by the United States within Mexico's borders would likely be seen as a violation of international law and could lead to significant diplomatic fallout. The Mexican government has historically been sensitive to foreign intervention, particularly from the United States, due to a long history of territorial disputes and interventions. Trump's proposal could strain diplomatic relations between the two countries, potentially undermining years of cooperation in the fight against drug trafficking. Mexican leaders may view the deployment of United States special operators as an infringement on their national sovereignty and an affront to their ability to manage internal security issues. Additionally, there are legal considerations within the United States itself. The deployment of military forces for law enforcement purposes raises questions about the Posse Comitatus Act, which limits the use of federal military personnel to enforce domestic policies. While special operations forces are typically used for counterterrorism and foreign military engagements, their involvement in a law enforcement capacity against cartels could blur the lines between military and civilian roles, leading to potential legal challenges. Diplomatically, the proposal could also impact the United States' relationships with other Latin American countries, who may view the move as a precedent for future interventions in the region. It could also affect the United States' standing in international forums, where respect for national sovereignty and adherence to international law are key principles. However, Trump is determined to pursue a military approach in the war against cartels. He already deployed troops troops to the Mexican border. Trump started by instructing the Pentagon to deploy 1,600 active duty troops to the U.S.-Mexican border. This initial wave of military personnel marked the beginning of a large-scale operation aimed at reinforcing border security. The troops, drawn from various divisions, were tasked with a range of duties designed to support the Border Patrol and enhance the existing infrastructure. Among their responsibilities was the installation of concertina wire barriers, a physical deterrent intended to prevent illegal crossings. The logistics of this operation were formidable, requiring meticulous planning and coordination. The troops needed transportation, supplies, and intelligence support to effectively carry out their mission. The deployment also involved the establishment of temporary bases and the integration of military resources with civilian agencies. Following the initial deployment, the Trump administration swiftly moved to improve its military presence at the border. The Pentagon announced plans to send an additional 1,500 active duty troops, bringing the total to approximately 3,600. Central to this expansion was the deployment of a logistics brigade from the 18th Airborne Corps, stationed at Fort Liberty in North Carolina. This brigade played a crucial role in sustaining the troops on the ground, ensuring they had the necessary resources to maintain operations over an extended period. Meanwhile, the 10th Mountain Division, renowned for its rapid deployment capabilities, prepared to send close to 500 soldiers to the border. These troops were tasked with providing critical support, including transportation, intelligence, and coordination with Border Patrol agents. The decision to deploy troops to the U.S.-Mexican border and Guantanamo Bay elicited a wide range of reactions from various stakeholders, reflecting the contentious nature of Trump's immigration policies. Political figures were sharply divided along party lines. Supporters of the administration, particularly within the Republican Party, lauded the move as a necessary step to safeguard national security and uphold the rule of law. They argued that a strong military presence was essential to deter illegal immigration and combat cartel activities. Trump also threatened to impose crippling tariffs on Mexico and Canada as part of his war against cartels and drugs. In response, the Mexican authorities have made a bold move, deploying the first of 10,000 active duty members to their end of the border. Trump's tariffs were intended as a pressure tactic to compel Mexico to take stronger action against the flow of drugs and migrants into the United States. In response, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum found herself at a critical juncture. With the threat of economic repercussions looming, she negotiated a deal to delay the tariffs, agreeing to deploy the National Guard to the border. The deployment of 10,000 troops along Mexico's northern border is a meticulously planned operation, reflecting both strategic foresight and logistical precision. The troops are strategically distributed across key border cities, with Ciudad Juarez and Tijuana receiving the largest contingents. Ciudad Juarez is set to host at least 1,650 troops, while Tijuana will see the arrival of 1,949 troops. The operation involves a mix of National Guard and Army units, each bringing specialized skills and equipment to the mission. The National Guard members are equipped with advanced surveillance technology, including drones and night vision goggles, to monitor the border effectively. Army trucks, armored vehicles, and helicopters provide mobility and support, ensuring rapid response capabilities. The deployment of 10,000 troops to Mexico's northern border has elicited a wide range of reactions from various stakeholders, reflecting the complexity and sensitivity of the situation. Within Mexico, public opinion is divided. Some citizens view the deployment as a necessary step to combat the pervasive influence of cartels and enhance national security. However, others express concern over the militarization of the border and the potential impact on civil liberties and human rights. In the United States, officials have largely welcomed the move as a positive development in the ongoing effort to curb drug trafficking by cartels and illegal immigration. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio publicly thanked the Mexican government for their cooperation, highlighting the importance of bilateral efforts in addressing shared challenges. However, some American lawmakers and advocacy groups remain skeptical, questioning the effectiveness of military deployments in solving complex social and economic issues. While the Mexican government claims they deployed these troops as part of a deal to pause Trump's traffic threats, some worry about the consequences of having too many guns on both sides of the border, especially now that cartels are heavily armed with U.S. weapons. Cartels arm up for an all-out war. As the United States and Mexico collaborate to tackle migration and drug trafficking issues, a sinister plot unfolds beneath the surface. Investigative journalist Tucker Carlson has made explosive claims that these cartels are acquiring United States weapons from the Ukrainian black market, raising alarms across the nation. The rise of cartel armament is a chilling development in the ongoing saga of organized crime in Mexico and its impact on the United States. Over the years, Mexican cartels have transformed from loosely organized groups into highly militarized entities, equipped with sophisticated weapons and tactical expertise. This evolution has been driven by a combination of factors, each contributing to the cartel's increased militarization and their ability to challenge state authorities and rival factions. One of the primary factors behind the cartel's armament is the lucrative nature of the drug trade itself. The immense profits generated from trafficking narcotics have provided cartels with the financial resources necessary to acquire advanced weaponry. These funds have allowed them to purchase military-grade firearms, explosives, and even armored vehicles, often through illicit channels. The cartel's vast financial resources have also enabled them to recruit and train former military personnel, further enhancing their tactical capabilities. Additionally, the cartels have capitalized on global conflicts to bolster their armament. Carlson's claims that cartels are acquiring United States weapons from the Ukrainian black market reflect the international dimension of this issue. As conflicts around the world create surplus weaponry, cartels exploit these opportunities to expand their arsenals, further complicating efforts to curb their power. The Mexican government's militarized approach to combating the cartels has inadvertently contributed to their increased armament. As the government deployed military forces to confront these criminal organizations, the cartels responded by escalating their own firepower to match the state's capabilities. This arms race has led to a cycle of violence, with both sides continually seeking to outgun each other. The cartel's militarization is not solely about acquiring weapons. It also involves adopting military tactics and strategies. Many cartels have established training camps where recruits undergo rigorous training in combat techniques, intelligence gathering, and counter-surveillance. This level of organization and discipline has enabled cartels to conduct complex operations, including ambushes, kidnappings, and assassinations, with a level of precision that rivals professional military units. The rise of cartel armament poses a significant threat to both Mexico and the United States. As these criminal organizations continue to amass firepower, their capacity to challenge state authority and destabilize regions grows. The implications of this militarization extend beyond the realm of drug trafficking, as cartels increasingly engage in other criminal activities including human trafficking, extortion, and money laundering. The allegations made by Tucker Carlson regarding Mexican cartels obtaining weapons from the Ukrainian black market has disrupted both political and law enforcement circles. These claims suggest a disturbing nexus between international arms trafficking and organized crime, raising serious concerns about the security implications for the United States and Mexico. The cartels, always on the lookout for new sources of firepower, have allegedly tapped into this black market, securing weapons that significantly enhance their combat capabilities. Carlson claims that the cartels have obtained a range of sophisticated arms, including assault rifles, grenade launchers, and even anti-tank missiles, all made in the United States. Such weaponry would not only bolster the cartel's ability to engage in violent confrontations with rival groups and law enforcement, but also pose a direct threat to national security. The implications of these claims have prompted an urgent investigation by both United States and Mexican authorities. Law enforcement agencies are working to trace the origins of these weapons and determine the extent of the cartel's involvement in the Ukrainian black market. This investigation involves collaboration with international partners, including European law enforcement agencies, to track the flow of arms from conflict zones to the Western Hemisphere. The investigation faces significant challenges, not least of which is the clandestine nature of the black market. Arms trafficking networks are notoriously difficult to penetrate, often involving complex webs of intermediaries and front companies that obscure the true buyers and sellers. Additionally, the volatile situation in Ukraine complicates efforts to monitor and control the movement of weapons within and beyond its borders. Despite these obstacles, investigators are making progress. Preliminary findings suggest that the cartels are leveraging their extensive smuggling networks to facilitate the transport of weapons from Europe to Mexico. These networks, originally established for drug trafficking, have proven adaptable to the illicit arms trade, allowing the cartels to circumvent traditional law enforcement measures. The potential designation of Mexican cartels as foreign terrorist organizations under Trump's administration represents a significant shift in the United States' approach to combating these powerful criminal entities. This move, if implemented, could have profound profound implications for both domestic and international policy, altering the landscape of the war on drugs and organized crime. Designating cartels as foreign terrorist organizations would grant the United States government a broader set of tools to combat their activities. Under this classification, law enforcement agencies would have enhanced authority to pursue cartel members and their associates, both within the United States and abroad. This could include freezing assets, imposing travel bans, and leveraging international cooperation to dismantle cartel networks more effectively. One of the most immediate impacts of such a designation would be the increased ability to target the financial infrastructure of the cartels. Also, the designation could facilitate greater collaboration between the United States and its international partners. Countries around the world, particularly those in Latin America, have long struggled with the influence of cartels within their borders. By framing the cartels as a global security threat, the United States could galvanize international efforts to combat these organizations, fostering intelligence sharing and joint operations that transcend traditional law enforcement boundaries. However, the potential designation is not without controversy and challenges. Critics argue that labeling cartels as foreign terrorist organizations could complicate diplomatic relations with Mexico, a key ally in the fight against drug trafficking. The Mexican government has expressed concerns that such a move could infringe on its sovereignty and lead to increased militarization of the conflict, potentially exacerbating violence in the region. There are also concerns about the implications for immigration and asylum policies. Designating cartels as terrorist organizations could impact individuals seeking refuge from cartel violence, complicating their ability to claim asylum in the United States. This raises ethical and humanitarian questions about the treatment of those fleeing cartel-controlled areas. Meanwhile, the United States' domestic gun laws and policies aren't making things easier. These policies have contributed to the arming of Mexican cartels. The ease with which firearms can be acquired in the United States has inadvertently contributed to the cartel's growing arsenal, highlighting a complex issue at the intersection of domestic policy and international crime. The United States is known for its relatively permissive gun laws, which vary significantly from state to state. This patchwork of regulations creates opportunities for firearms to be purchased legally and then trafficked illegally across the border into Mexico. The so-called Iron River of guns flowing south has been a persistent challenge for law enforcement agencies on both sides of the border. One of the primary mechanisms through which cartels acquire weapons is through straw purchases. In these transactions, individuals with clean backgrounds purchase firearms legally on behalf of those who cannot, including cartel operatives. These guns are then smuggled into Mexico, often in bulk, to arm cartel members. The lack of comprehensive background checks and the ability to purchase multiple firearms at once facilitate this process, making it difficult for authorities to track and prevent such activities. Gun shows and private sales also present significant loopholes in the United States gun laws. These venues often do not require background checks, allowing individuals to purchase firearms without scrutiny. Cartels exploit these gaps, sending intermediaries to acquire weapons that are then transported across the border. The anonymity and lack of oversight in these transactions make them an attractive option for those seeking to arm criminal organizations. The Fast and Furious scandal, also known as the ATF gunwalking scandal, which involved the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives losing track of firearms intended to trace cartel operations, reflected the challenges faced by law enforcement in addressing this issue. Efforts to tighten gun laws and close these loopholes have faced significant political resistance in the United States. The debate over gun control is deeply polarized, with strong advocacy on both sides. Proponents of stricter regulations argue that closing loopholes and implementing universal background checks are essential steps in curbing the flow of firearms to cartels. Opponents, however, often cite Second Amendment rights and the importance of individual freedoms as reasons to maintain the status quo. Despite these challenges, there is a growing recognition of the need for international cooperation to address the issue of arms trafficking. The United States and Mexico have engaged in joint initiatives to combat the illegal flow of weapons, including information sharing and coordinated enforcement efforts. However, without significant changes to domestic gun policies, the problem is likely to persist. One of the most common methods used by cartels is the employment of ant trafficking, a technique that involves smuggling small quantities of weapons across the border incrementally. By moving firearms in smaller batches, often concealed within legitimate cargo or personal belongings, cartels minimize the risk of detection. This method relies on a network of couriers, each responsible for transporting a few weapons at a time, making it difficult for authorities to intercept significant shipments. Cartels also exploit the vast and often porous nature of the United States-Mexico border. With over 3,000 kilometers of terrain to cover, including remote desert areas and rugged mountains, the border presents numerous opportunities for illicit crossings. Cartels utilize off-road vehicles, all-terrain vehicles, and even horseback to navigate these challenging landscapes, bypassing official checkpoints and patrols. As tensions rise, experts are analyzing the possible consequences of an all-out war between the cartels and the American government. The consequences of an all-out war with cartels. Imagine a world where the United States declares an all-out war on the powerful and ruthless cartels of Mexico. The consequences of such a bold move could be catastrophic, with experts warning of serious repercussions. Violence against U.S. tourists and diplomats could escalate. One of the most notorious incidents in this violent history is the murder of DEA agent Enrique Camarena in 1985. Camarena was working to dismantle the Guadalajara cartel, one of the most powerful drug trafficking organizations at the time. His abduction, torture, and murder shocked both countries, highlighting the cartel's willingness to use extreme violence to protect their interests. The incident led to Operation Leyenda, the largest DEA homicide investigation ever undertaken, and it marked a turning point in U.S.-Mexico relations. The murder of Leslie Enriquez, a U.S. consulate employee, further underscored the dangers faced by American personnel in Mexico. In 2010, Enriquez and her husband were gunned down in Ciudad Juarez, a city plagued by cartel violence. This tragic event strained diplomatic relations and highlighted the ongoing threat posed by these criminal organizations. The violence perpetrated by cartels has had a profound impact on U.S.-Mexico relations, leading to increased cooperation between the two countries in the fight against drug trafficking. However, the threat of retaliation and the potential for further violence remain ever present. The cartels have a long history of targeting individuals associated with the United States, and the potential for violence against these groups is a significant risk. Experts warn that any military intervention could provoke a fierce backlash from these powerful criminal organizations. Lucas Weber, an expert from Tech Against Terrorism, emphasizes the potential for cartels to retaliate by hitting these vulnerable targets. The impact of such violence would be devastating, not only in terms of human lives, but also in the broader context of U.S.-Mexico relations. The economic consequences of an all-out war with cartels would also be profound, affecting both the United States and Mexico in numerous ways. The intricate web of trade, tourism, and investment that binds the two nations would face unprecedented challenges, leading to significant financial repercussions. Trade between the United States and Mexico is a cornerstone of their economic relationship. The cartel's influence extends beyond the drug trade, infiltrating legitimate businesses and supply chains. Tourism, a vital sector for Mexico's economy, would also suffer greatly. The potential for increased violence and instability would deter travelers, leading to a decline in tourism revenue. The fear of cartel retaliation against tourists would cast a long shadow over the industry, affecting businesses and communities reliant on tourism for their livelihoods. The United States, too, would feel the impact, as travel advisories and heightened security concerns could deter Americans from visiting Mexico. Investment flows between the two countries would likely be affected as well. The uncertainty and risk associated with an all-out war would make Mexico a less attractive destination for foreign investment. Businesses may hesitate to invest in a region plagued by violence and instability, leading to a slowdown in economic growth and development. If a direct confrontation would lead to an all-out war and multiple consequences, what can the United States and Mexican government do to solve the problem? One option would be getting rid of the problem from the root. Addressing the root causes of cartel recruitment is a crucial strategy in the effort to reduce violence in Mexico. The allure of cartel life often stems from socioeconomic factors, such as poverty, lack of education, and limited job opportunities. By tackling these underlying issues, it may be possible to weaken the cartels from within and create a more stable and peaceful society. Socioeconomic development plays a vital role in cutting cartel recruitment. Investing in education and vocational training can provide individuals with the skills needed to pursue legitimate employment opportunities. By creating pathways to economic success, communities can offer alternatives to the dangerous and often deadly allure of cartel involvement. Programs aimed at reducing poverty and improving living conditions can also help to diminish the appeal of joining criminal organizations. Law enforcement efforts are another critical component in the fight against cartel recruitment. Strengthening the capacity of Mexican law enforcement agencies to combat organized crime is essential. This includes providing training, resources, and support to effectively target and dismantle cartel operations. Collaboration with international partners such as the United States can enhance these efforts and provide valuable intelligence and expertise. Community Community engagement and outreach programs can also play a significant role in reducing cartel recruitment. By fostering trust and cooperation between law enforcement and local communities, it is possible to create an environment where individuals feel safe to report criminal activity and resist the influence of cartels. Initiatives that promote social cohesion and resilience can help to build stronger, more resilient communities that are less susceptible to cartel influence. Community cohesion is also severely impacted by the presence of cartels. The pervasive influence of these criminal organizations can erode trust among neighbors and create divisions within communities. The fear of retaliation or being labeled as informants can discourage individuals from cooperating with law enforcement, further isolating communities and weakening social bonds. This breakdown in trust and cohesion makes it difficult for communities to unite against the cartels and work towards a safer environment. The psychological impact extends to children and young people who are particularly vulnerable to the effects of violence. Growing up in an environment where violence is normalized can have long-lasting effects on their development and future prospects. The constant exposure to danger and instability can hinder educational attainment and limit opportunities, perpetuating a cycle of poverty and violence. Thanks for watching. Check out the other cards on the screen.